evening, everyone, and welcome to today's Methodical Monday Christmas special. I'd like to welcome our guest today, the winner of Orienteering World Cup 2024 and many other competitions, who has joined us all the way from Switzerland, Simona Aebersold, and she is going to tell us about her way to the top. All right, Simona, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna tell you something about my way to the top, my motivation, and maybe also something about my my early years. So I'll also ask if there's questions after every slide, so you have the chance to ask questions there. I'm from basic orienteering family. My dad started orienteering when he was really young. My mom was a runner and also got into the sport when she met my dad. So I got to run orienteering when I was quite young. On this picture, I think I'm 2 years old. So I got taken to races and trainings, and I really enjoyed being there, running the kids' races. So that's how I got into the sport. I also tried gymnastics, but that wasn't really my kind of sports, as it was always the same. And with orienteering, I like that it's always a new challenge and that you're out in the nature. In 2007, I ran my first orienteering race alone. It took quite a long time until I was able, or until I dared to run a race alone. There's quite a fun story. Before my first planned race alone, I had to run the training with my parents because they were not sure if I was good enough to run that race alone. So they told me that if I didn't run around that corner in the forest and found that one control myself, then I wasn't allowed to run the race. I was really afraid to run around that corner, but I did it because I really, really wanted to run that race and got to run that race. And in the end, I even won it. So that was a really good start into my orienteering career. On the picture is also my first Swiss champs, where I won the bronze medal. And that gave me a lot of motivation to continue with the sport and enjoy being out in the forest and find those controls. Then in 2012, I got selected to the regional team of Bern. There I got to join 2 training camps a year, where we went to the neighbor countries, or just in Switzerland, to special terrains. And it was a really big chance for me to improve my orienteering, with also coaches that were responsible for us, with training weekends every month. So I spent around, I think, 30 days a year in training camps and those training weekends with the team, which brought me a big step forward in my orienteering technique. Then in 2013, I ran my first AOC and also won my first AOC title in the sprint. I was quite a sprinter back then. I'll come back to that later. So that also gave me a lot more motivation to train and to also prepare for races. It was the first time that I prepared a lot for a sprint race, for example. And I thought it was a really good feeling to stand at the start and know exactly where I was on the map and know exactly how it looked like in the terrain, as I had prepared with, I'm not sure if it was Google Maps and Google Street View, but of course pictures and an old map. In 2015, I ran my first JWalk in Reiland in Norway. Also won the sprint there again. 3 more sprint gold medals followed. I'm not really sure why it was the sprint that I was so good at, but it could be that I had a really good base with my running, with my speed. I was quite fast, I think, back then. Didn't do that much fast training, but I had a good base from holidays with my family, hiking, biking, climbing, running orienteering all over Europe. So yeah, I just kind of took advantage of that, I think, in the sprint distances. Then in 2015, after JWOC, I got selected to the junior national team, where I spent the next 3 years in Switzerland. You have quite a lot of training camps and training weekends again, and it's more professional than the regional team. So there I got more into the sport, and also went to high school with some sports program where I could adjust my schedule there to my training schedule, and also it was no problem to miss out on school stuff when I was abroad for training camps or races. In 2018, I ran my first EOC on senior level. It was quite surprising for me to be able to take part there. It wasn't the plan until I got asked by the national team if I didn't want to try, and it was really worth it. I felt really good among those champions. I really enjoyed that week to gain experience and be with the team, with my idols, and yeah, gain that experience. And on top of that, I saw that I was good enough for 5th place in sprint and the 3rd place in middle distance, which was an extreme motivation for the next years, and to train more to keep on doing what I was doing. After that, I got selected to the national A team of Swiss Orienteering, where I've been spending the last years. 2019 was my first World Champs in Norway. There I got maybe a bit more professional. I trained a lot more in Scandinavian terrain, prepared a lot more for those races than I had for JWOC, AOC, and also that AOC in Switzerland maybe as well. Or there we spent a lot of time in Ticino, of course. But that was the first step into like professional orienteering, I would say. Then in 2020, I got to know that boy on a training camp. And why I'm mentioning this is because I think he's responsible for how I train today and how I professionalized my training even more. We spend a lot of time on training camps throughout the whole year. We're basically abroad the whole year and try to get the most relevant terrain for the biggest races. We try to spend most of the winter time in good training conditions, and yeah, basically try to be best everywhere we can, and best prepared, of course. And then 2023 was a really big goal. I had been training for that since 2019, so it was 4 years of preparation and focus on those World Champs, and a really big thing to win that first World Champs title on that race that I had in my mind for the past 4 years. Yeah, any questions to this first slide?
Yeah, I don't see anything in the chat yet.
Then I'll go on to the second one. Here you can see my training hours from 2015 to now. Green is running, purple is orienteering, red is strength training, and the blue one is everything alternative training, mostly biking or cross trainer. And you can basically see that I trained quite much the same until 2019. This was also the goal. I saw that I was already on quite a good level in 2018 at EOC. So my goal was basically to keep on training like I had trained the past years in 2018, I unfortunately got injured by high jump at university. So that's why the alternative training is a bit more there. But yeah, overall, I started to increase my training in 2020 with Corona. I had more time to train, more time to think about the whole training stuff, how I wanted to develop. And yeah, also Kasper that brought some new training methods with him. I tested threshold training in 2021 first time. Didn't really work in the beginning as I had to adjust quite a lot, and I needed to run more, which was more stress on my body, which got me injured several times in the beginning. But then I found some way through it with more recovery time, more varying surface, also running a lot on soft ground. So yeah, then in 2023 and 2024, it worked really well for the first time with threshold training. Yeah, and I also ran some PBs in 2024 for the first time, or 2023, 24, which I think was something that was based on the continuous training that I could do in those 2 years and all the base that I had built up in the previous years. But yeah, the most important thing I want to say with that is that it took me quite a long time until I increased my training and until I was on the level that I'm now with training. It wasn't from 0 to 100%, but it was gradually. And I also gradually decreased my alternative training, as you can see on the graphs. So it was all planned, and in the end, it actually turned out well. Any questions to this?
Yeah, we have our first question. What motivates you to train?
Yeah, I'll come back to that later. But yeah, mostly just the progress. But yeah, I'll come back to that later. There's some slide about that. Is there any other question?
I don't see any other.
Okay. Yeah, then I'll come to my training method. As I said, I started it in 2021 to gradually increase the training a bit. Had some troubles with finding the right intensities and the right amount of training, but now I think I found it, and this is basically how basic week looks like. I'm training up to 3 double threshold days a week, where I try to take advantage of the time the body is in the mood to train hard. You can also read a lot about that on Marius Bakken's webpage. I can maybe share a link. It's also in English, and it explains everything about my method, basically, everything about threshold training. And yeah, in between those hard days, the main focus is on recovering, so I'm not doing that much there. Really easy training, just trying to recover as much as possible to be able to run fast again the next day. But what is also really important to not get too much stress on the body is to control the training. So I'm measuring lactate in almost all the sessions. I'm running on loops where I can see if I get faster or slower. So I'm tracking the progress, which also motivates me again in times where I actually get faster. So yeah, it's really important to have that tracking. And then if something doesn't go well, if the lactate is too high, if I'm too slow, if the heart rate is too high, that I can react to that and adjust the rest of the training and maybe train a little bit less the following days. Then strength training is not on this training plan because I didn't do any strength training that week. I'm not doing that much strength training. Mostly it's just twice 20 minutes a week with 10 minutes each, training core strength and the rest a bit leg. So it's little, but for me it's enough. I have also tried other training methods with strength training, and that was way too much for me. It was twice 2 hours per week, not continuous strength training, but we were just in a training center for 2 hours, and from like one place to another, training different leg strength training exercises. And the next day I was just dead usually. I didn't always have sore muscles, but usually I just felt not really fit enough to run fast, which was every other day, of course, to run fast. And then it always impacted my fast trainings. So I cut out on that strength training, and for a short while I didn't do any strength training anymore, just some core strength. But last winter I started again with that new method, twice 20 minutes, and I think that's perfect for my training schedule. It fits perfectly in there. It doesn't influence other trainings, and I think I still get some benefit from it. Then, as I said, I'm looking for the best place to train always. Winter time, usually in warmer countries, and trying to get as much orienteering as well as possible, and good trainings. Relevant terrain is something that I've also already mentioned, which is really important to me, to train in relevant terrain, which is also why I'm moving to Sweden probably in spring, to spend as much time as possible in Scandinavian terrain before World Champs next year in Finland. Yeah, any questions to this?
Yeah, we have 2 questions. The first one is, what is your favorite terrain to run?
I think Scandinavian terrain, or really challenging Scandinavian terrain where you don't see that far, but where it's also not really fast to run. I think Norway is quite a good example, with lots of blueberries on the ground and trees that make the visibility a bit worse. So I like challenging terrains with not many paths. Like most favorite terrain without paths.
All right. The other question is, does this week's schedule with double thresholds differ a lot throughout the year?
No, not really. Or I try to do at least 2 double threshold days a week. The third one is mostly a bit adjusted to the schedule of the week. If there's some races in the weekend, then of course I'm doing less, and I also adjust maybe the second double threshold a bit, that I'm doing a bit less, but still those two sessions. Also, before races, I try to have that kind of training as close as possible to the races, and then taper. And this year I did it like I only tapered like with normal and long tapering for World Champs and European Champs, to save that extra bit of energy and performance for those really important races. And the rest I basically took off 2, 3 to 4 days before the races, where I did less and shorter intervals, also some faster stuff. So I would say that the closer it gets to the races, the more faster stuff there is, if it's sprint. If it's forest, then it's mostly just one session before the races. That is some standard session that I always do before the races.
Okay, some new questions have appeared. The first one is, do you strength train before or after the easier running session?
After. Yeah, I learned in my studies, I am studying sports science, that you shouldn't run after strength training, as the effect goes away or vanishes quite a lot. I'm not sure if that's always right, but you also feel a bit worse after strength training. So I try to not run directly after strength training, but I for sure don't have that many hours or as many hours as they say you should have between the trainings, or between strength training and the next running session. Yeah, but always after.
All right, another question. My son asks, how much do you earn by running orienteering? Or maybe something like, when did you start to be a pro orienteering runner?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mentioned different steps in my career, which were really important to my development, I would say. Like pro orienteer, I would say, was after World Champs in Norway in 2019, where I really got into that kind of pro training and spending a lot of time on training camps, trying to be best prepared for every race. And before that, it was more like running the races and training, but the training was not really adjusted exactly, or I wasn't training that relevant to what I was racing. I didn't really think about that much. And with the senior time, we discussed a lot more with the coaches, like discussions about training, about how to prepare best for the biggest races. So I think pro orienteer was definitely after Norway, but when I, like, the point where I knew that I wanted to become a good orienteer and the world champion, that was also always my goal, was already really early on. My dad was 3 times world champion, so in my early years I always had that picture of him, and wanted to be world champion as well. Of course, back then I didn't really know what it meant, but with the years coming, I was racing AOC and I was racing JWOC, and with those races I just realized that was the thing I wanted to do, and I wanted to be a professional orienteer, and I wanted to invest everything I could in order to get to the top of the podium and be a world champion.
Okay, another question. How did you manage to abroad so much money-wise? Did you travel so much back in the day?
Yeah, I started to travel that much in, I would say, 2021, and it increased a bit from then. Last year was probably the year I was most abroad. Money-wise, I don't have any apartment that I rent. When I'm in Switzerland, then I live at my parents' place still. So I don't spend any money for living somewhere except from living in those Airbnbs. When we're traveling, we're mostly renting some cheap Airbnb, so it's basically the same as renting some apartment somewhere, just that we don't own the apartment and that we don't live there permanently. But yeah, that's why it works so well money-wise, because I just pay for the apartment that I'm living in for Airbnbs.
Okay, next question is, what kind of strength training do you do?
Yeah, it's always the same program. I'm always doing some squats and then some step ups, some 10 minutes of core strength training, some basic exercises, and then some jumps in the end, but really nothing that is not normal for runners. Basic running strength training.
All right, next question. How do you balance studies and sport?
Yeah, until now it has worked quite well. Right now it doesn't work well. I'm pretty out of shape and studying for exams quite a lot, on the edge of getting sick. So this is the downside of trying to have studies and sports both. But it worked quite well the past years because I didn't really do that much. I studied maybe 25% until the university told me that I had to be done soon. Otherwise, I couldn't finish the studies anymore. So now I had to study 100% this fall almost, and that doesn't work for me. It might work for other people, but for me and with my training schedule, it doesn't work because it's just too much stress on the body with both at the same time. But if I study less, then it works quite well with 1-2 exams per semester. It's no problem to study for that with the training schedule. I used to just lie in bed with my computer and study there and try to relax and study at the same time. And if it's not that much, then it works well.
All right, and
maybe I also have to add that I'm studying from home or from wherever I am. So I'm not physically at university, but I follow the courses from abroad, from podcasts, and I'm basically never at university.
Yeah, okay. And final question for now. Have you ever done track and field? And if yes, why?
Track and field races, unfortunately not. That would still be really cool to do. I wanted to try to get selected for European champs in cross country this fall, but the race was in the middle of the exam period, and also the selection races were really far away from here in Germany and further up. So I decided not to, but it would be something really cool, and I think we orienteers could be really good there. I ran some 3,000 meters and 5,000 meters, but not official races or not official athletics track and field races. We always have one 5,000 meter test a year that we have to run from national team. And earlier on in the junior years, we had to run a 3,000 meter test. So that's what I'm doing. And I also like those kind of tests for me to test the shape and to see how fast I am at the moment. Also used it to track my shape the past year, and it was really motivating to see that I got really a lot faster. This fall, or always like in winter time, fall time, or wherever it fits into the schedule, I like to run road races. And there it's also kind of, it's a good training, and it's good to see the times from year to year, if you get faster or slower, and if you have to adjust the training maybe.
Okay, thank you for your answers, and that's all for now. I don't see any other questions at the moment.
So then I'll come back to that motivation question. I am not always motivated to train, but I think no one is that. My motivation in training is to see the progress, or to, like I mentioned that I had those standard loops for intervals, or those 3,000 meter tests, 5,000 meter tests, and to see the progress there and to track it with lactate and heart rate. I think that's something really cool. And even if you get slower, I'm kind of motivated to track it and to train better or adjust the training a bit to be faster again the next time. And of course, when you're making progress, it's really good for your motivation. And then I'm working for that kind of flow in the terrain. I think it's so cool to run races and just be in that kind of flow where everything fits together and you feel like flying through the forest. Also, when you feel really fit, when you feel that you have really fast legs after tapering, I think that's some feeling that I'm working for with all my training. And if I'm not motivated for training, then I always think of that nice feeling when you're in the forest and everything goes well and the legs feel fast. So then it's easier to push through hard times and through hard trainings. And of course, then also I call it top of the podium feeling. It's just some undescribable feeling when you're on the top of the podium. You hear the national anthem playing, you can sing it, and you just get a reward for every hard training, for every minute you invested. And yeah, that's what I'm basically working for with all my training, and what keeps me motivated. Questions to that? Yeah. Or I think, yeah, I'm actually anyways always already on the end, at the end. So you can ask whatever you want.
Okay. Another question is, your running volume is huge. How do you make sure to get enough energy and avoid stress fractures, iron deficiency, and other health problems?
Iron deficiency, I always take blood tests when I'm back in Switzerland to track it. I have quite a lot of problems with iron deficiency, so I try to like stay one step ahead of the iron deficiency and react early enough. But yeah, the rest, stress fractures, it's just I think, or I had some, not stress fractures, but some overuse injuries in my early senior years. But that was basically to other stuff than training. So for me, it's basically when the stress gets too high outside of training, then the risk is higher to get injured. Because training, I control it by measuring lactate. Of course, that's not against the stress fractures, but against the stress fractures, I'm running on varied surface. I run a lot on fields, which is really soft. I never, or basically never, run on asphalt. I try to avoid that. Run on or intervals, I run them, if whenever possible, on soft ground, on grass, except instead of gravel roads, to lower stress a bit. I try to eat enough and at the right times, right after training, get some fuel in before training, and try to stay balanced that way.
All right, another question. Do you have a meal plan?
No, no, I don't. But as I mentioned, I try to get food in as soon as possible after the trainings. try to eat enough throughout the whole day, and yeah, basically that basically works. But yeah, it's just matter of feeling, I would say.
Okay, next question I see is which Czech maps do you like the most?
Which
Czech maps?
Czech maps. I would say the sandstone maps. I really like those. I like the route choices in those kind of terrains. I think they're extremely challenging, but also it's nice terrain, and the way to look at it, to run through it. It's always nice ground. It's nice rocks, and you have to be precise in the rocks in those formations. So yeah, there's so many challenges in sandstone terrain. So that's probably the favorite terrain.
Okay. Next is how many people are in your coaching staff? What are their responsibilities? How does your father feel about your success?
Yeah, my coaches. It's the national team coaches basically. It's Padesátý that's responsible for me. And then I have a personal coach that's responsible for my physical training. That helps me with that there, but mostly I would say I'm my own coach. I plan my training myself. I think I know my body the best myself, and I'm really interested in how to train best and figuring out new stuff. So I really like to write my own training plans and also take the learnings out of trainings that go less well and apply them in new training plan. Yeah, my dad was actually also my coach for several years during my regional team and also junior national team time, I think. So he has helped me a lot, still helps me a lot. And yeah, of course, he's really happy to see that both my brother and me are doing so well. And mostly, I think he's happy to see that we're so happy doing orienteering.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, are you bothered by all the publicity you get with being as good as you are? Are there any demands on you about your social media?
I have sponsors, so there I have some stuff I have to do and some stuff I have to use social media with, but otherwise I think as an orienteer we don't really get recognized when we go to shops or stuff, so kind of enjoy that. I wouldn't really like to be recognized everywhere I go. But yeah, I think it's also really cool to use that status we have as good orienteers to make our sport more popular, especially right now when TV productions are so good and so many people or more people get interested in orienteering and think it's really, really cool to watch, then I think it's really cool that we as good orienteers can make the sport a bit more popular.
Okay, moving on to another question. How does a day look like for you, time-wise, and managing eating / what do you eat?
When I'm not studying, then my day looks basically like getting up in the morning around 7 o'clock, then eating breakfast, some good breakfast that gives me some base for the first training. Then going for a training at around 9:30, come coming back from training, eating something, eating lunch, recovering after that. Mostly I just lie in bed and try to maybe answer emails or do other stuff I have to do. And then going for a second training, mostly around 4 o'clock. Coming back from that, and usually I directly eat dinner to like not get that gap between training and eating. And yeah, then I'll go to bed around 9 o'clock.
Okay, next, what are some tips you can give to youngsters to improve their level?
My favorite tip is to run as much orienteering as possible in different kinds of terrains. I think in Czech Republic already, as an example, you have so many different terrains where you can gain experience. For me, it was really important to travel abroad, to have those races, like Swiss week, for example, in different terrains and mountain terrains and normal Mittelland forest in Switzerland. Or then we ran O-ringen as kids and gained some experience there in Nordic terrain. We went to different world champs to, like as a spectator, but also to run the spectator races and gained experience there as well. So I think I would say that gaining experience in like as many different terrains as possible is something that can never be wrong.
Okay, next is how often do you measure your lactate?
Yeah, it's basically, or usually I always measure in trainings that I can control, in the way that that I'm running the same kind of intervals. If it's on the treadmill and I'm running 45-15, for example, then it's always the same training, and I can track my progress with the lactate. If I'm running the same loop in the forest, I measure lactate. But yeah, in general, right now, I try to measure lactate in every fast session, so up to 6 times a week, to just control the stress, or to see if the body is ready to run fast, and if I can continue with normal training, or if I have to take some break. But basically it's maybe about 3 to 5 times in an average week.
Okay, thank you. Next one is what other sports activities do you like?
I like cross-country skiing a lot. Unfortunately, nowadays I usually concentrate on having a good place to train, like running wise, during winter, and a lot of orienteering as well. So there it's mostly warm and no chance for any cross-country skiing. But this year around Christmas, for example, I'm going to the mountains and try to spend some hours on the cross-country skis. Then I also like road biking, but I'm not doing it that much anymore because yeah, I haven't done it enough. So everything starts to hurt after half an hour on the bike. So it's not that fun anymore. But yeah, that's probably the 2 things I like the most: cross-country skiing and road biking.
Okay, next one is will we see you in V60?
In V60?
Yeah, W60.
60. What is that?
I'm not really sure.
Probably not then.
Okay, then moving on. What are you studying in the university?
I'm studying sports science in a major subject, and that I have actually finished, or did finish it in 2020, but I still have to finish my minor subjects, which are economy and education science, something totally different. But yeah, the reason that I'm studying those minor subjects is mostly because, I need minor subjects, and I try to get the easiest possible way to finish my studies.
Okay, I see here V60 is probably the age category.
Yes, then definitely, of course, or I hope so. I hope that my body still likes to run when I'm 60. But that's what I like with orienteering, that you can do it throughout the whole life, and that you're also together with everyone at the national races. It's like a big family. It's not that the elite is separated from the others, but that it's all together.
Okay, next question. What kind of theoretical training do you do, and how much? Do you ever set courses for your own training and as a preparation for races? Have you tried to draw a map?
Yes, I have done all of that. I've drawn maps for Jaywalk in Hungary in 2018, the sprint map, and World Champs in Denmark in 2022. And I think that's something that helps you a lot to get to know the terrain. I felt like I had been there before already when I ran at the World Champs in Denmark, and that's something that really helps you with understanding it. And then courses, I also make a lot of courses for myself on our training camps. It's usually or mostly us that draw the courses for ourselves. Sometimes it's also some of our coaches that help us with that. But also for competitions, of course. Like before big races, I always draw my own courses and try to study maps as much as possible. Try to study route choices. Try to look at Google Maps, Google Street View, everything like that. But that's usually basically only the time before World Champs or other big competitions like World Cups or European Champs. So there's nothing like fixed every week where I do that theoretical training or visualizing and stuff like that. But mostly it's also during winter time that I look at maps from World Champs, but it's definitely more often like the last 2 months before the big races.
Okay, thank you. Next question is what kind of sensor do you have on your arm when you run? Is it for measuring lactate?
No, it's for measuring the heart rate. It's something that came up 1 year ago or 1.5, 2 years ago, that you use that on your arm instead of the like chest strap, and I didn't really like the chest strap because it always hurt me. So the arm strap is a way better option for me, and it's just as accurate as the chest strap. So I like that way of measuring heart rate and controlling the training by doing that.
Okay. Next is, do you stretch after trainings?
Sorry, I didn't hear the first part of the sentence.
Do you stretch after trainings?
Okay. No, usually not. I basically never stretch, but I use massage guns to boost the recovery a bit. I use some blood flow increasing stuff like Compex. Maybe someone knows that machine or whatever you call it. It's some pads that you put on the skin, and then the muscles twitch, and should increase the blood flow and relax the muscles. And then I use sauna and just basic relaxing in bed, lying down, sleeping.
Okay, next question I see is, do you use bicarb?
No, I haven't tried it yet. Probably I will try it once, but until now I didn't really feel like it. But yeah, I think it could help.
Okay, next one is, do you usually train alone or with someone?
Depends a bit on where I am. Right now, when I'm in Switzerland, I usually train alone because there's no one around here that trains the same. When I'm traveling around living with Kasper, then I sometimes train with him, or we train the same stuff, but he's faster. So that's usually my problem. Either people are too fast or they don't train the same. But yeah, I also like to train alone, especially intervals where I like to have them controlled and not run too fast, which is really important because otherwise there's too much stress on the body. If you run 6 times too fast in a week, then nothing works anymore probably. So I like to train that alone, but for easy runs, I love to have company and make them a bit more interesting.
Okay, thank you. And another question, how many competitions do you participate in during the year?
I've never really counted them. So it's hard to say. It used to be more probably before I started to professionalize more or spend more time on training camps and abroad. But it's basically the World Cup races, World Champs, European Champs, and then Swiss Champs, and some other small races. So it's probably not that many races, but for me, races are really important because that's where I get the best training effect, like in map reading wise, and also like you have that speed that you run in normal competitions, and maybe also the pressure, and that's why I actually really like to run competitions, but usually doesn't really fit the schedule that well to run competitions every week.
Okay, thank you. And another, are you nervous before the major races? If yes, how do you cope with the stress in the last days, hours, or minutes before the start?
Yeah, I'm always really nervous. There's not really much you can do against it, or I try to just take it as a positive thing. Or I know that when I'm nervous, I'm running well. And it's the races I run the best when I'm most nervous, because then I have the focus and I know that it's important to do well there. But yeah, that's basically it. I'm just telling myself that it's important to be nervous in order to be good, and that the nervousness can also end up in positive energy for the race.
Okay, thank you. That's all for the questions I see for now. We can... there's another one. Have you had any serious injuries? If so, how did you counter them?
No, I haven't. I've just had shin splints twice, and some weird muscle stuff after COVID twice. The shin splints, I had close follow-up with the medical team, and knew exactly what to do, or did exactly what they told me to do. But yeah, the other muscle problems there, I just had to find out myself, because no one knew how to help me, because no one knew where it came from, and you couldn't see anything on the MRI. So there was a bit harder to get out of it, but in the end I also managed by just trial and error. So yeah, I think for me it's really important to have that medical team around where I can always ask for help.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, what is your goal for 2025?
The biggest goal are World Champs in Finland. The question is just what I want to achieve there. I haven't really set any goal. Of course, it would be really cool to win another gold medal, but I know that there's a lot of work to do in Scandinavian terrain in order to be able to win a gold medal there. So yeah, I'm gonna work really hard, and then, as always, I never really have those big goals like visualizing the goals before the races. I just want to do my best at the races, and then I know that when I'm happy with the race, I'm usually also happy with the result. So I just want to be happy in the finish, and happy with my race, and happy with what I have done before the race in order to get there. And then I'm hopefully also happy with the results. But yeah, a gold medal would be definitely the dream goal.
Okay, thank you. Next is, do you have any friends among the top orienteers? Do you chat with them before the race?
Yeah, I think I would say we're all friends. We're one big family, and that's what I really love with orienteering. I heard from athletics that it's more like individual athletes. We're also individual athletes, but we're on training camps together. We prepare together for races, and then only at the races we're competitors. And that's something that I think is extremely cool with orienteering.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions for now. We can wait for a bit if some new appear.
Otherwise, you can also always send me some personal message on Instagram or wherever, and I'll answer them if I hopefully see them.
Okay, I don't see any new questions appearing. So that is probably all.
Yes.
We have a thank you. So thanks so much for organizing this, and thanks to Simona for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Hey, next question. How do you manage your time before the start in quarantine?
In quarantine, I usually either read books or play games with the others, solve some riddles, and then warm up about half an hour. Depends a lot on what distance it is. Yeah, that's basically it. Listen to music, maybe.
I don't see any other questions, so let's give it some time, and maybe some new will appear. And now there are two of them. The first is the hardest podium in your career.
The hardest podium?
Yes, in your career.
Hard to say. Probably European jumps this year in Hungary, long distance. That was an extremely tough race. It was so hot. And that made it even tougher. I was quite dead in the finish, but the day after was horrible. I spent the whole time lying on the sofa, probably whole morning. In the afternoon, I tried to go for some training on the model map of relay, but I didn't really manage. So I would say that was definitely one of the toughest podiums there.
Okay, another question is, do you have any sleep issues before bigger competitions?
Yes, or mostly after. I take caffeine for the races, and I'm not sure if it's that or the excitement that makes me not sleep in the evening. But usually, for example, after World Champs long distance last year, I probably slept 3 hours before next morning, and yeah, I try to sleep as much as possible before the races, so that it's no problem when I get a bit less sleep during the races. And for me, I'm always so focused during the races that it doesn't really matter if I don't sleep that much. I think it matters most to just lie in bed and relax, close your eyes, and try to just relax the whole body and also the mind. Try to think about something else.
Okay, next question I see is, do you take supplements or do you get everything from food?
I take iron supplements, but just because I can't really keep my iron levels high with only food. It's impossible for me. Otherwise, I don't really take any supplements.
Okay, thank you. Let's wait a moment for some new questions. Should they some appear? Okay, I don't see any other questions, so that's probably all of them. Yeah, I think so. That's all.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. It's really cool to talk about some training and other stuff.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Okay, and if that's all, then happy holidays to everyone and happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.